welcome everyone on this new episode of Let's Talk. I'm super happy to be here today with Oleksandr Honchar. Alexander, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. Good weather, good time. Great to talking to you. So everything's good. How are you?
Amazing. I'm super good too. I'm super happy for everyone who is tuning in. Let's Talk AI. We deep dive with expert and professional into the field of data and AI, and we try to have a very clear picture of what's going on and how we can improve for our careers, our interest, curiosity, and so on. And today, I'm super happy to have you on the show. I have many questions, so let's get right into it. Maybe for the people who might not know you, could you maybe introduce yourself in a few words?
Yeah, I'm a co-founder and director of AI engineering at Neurons Lab. We are AI consulting development company. We are doing this together as a company for 5 years. I'm personally doing AI for more than 10 years as an engineer, researcher, entrepreneur, teacher, public speaker, blogger, different roles.
Different and many roles. All right, so I would love to start maybe this chat with getting to know you a little bit better in terms of your background. But first of all, what are you trying to achieve today? So I like to talk about like the state of the art of people. So what is your state of the art? And by that I mean, what are you most interested in? Not necessarily from a technological point of view, but like, what is your where is your curiosity at those days?
I would say it's intersection of technological and cultural changes. So obviously, my professional life is very technological, but then there is the personal life, culture, and let's say us as human beings. So how to reconcile it? I know it's really abstract way of saying we can dive into this, but reconciling human way and technological way, this is what is interesting for me recently. Both, and actually it correlates with the business approach as well, because in my business we work with people in the very end. So how to reconcile the way people work, people think, and how to use technologies, this is affecting my business as well.
Awesome. We'll get into all of that. So, for everyone who's listening and myself, could we maybe do a brief retrospective of key moments on your career? So, like main points, maybe from what you studied to how you got into the field, and like key moments in your careers that really helped you grow. Like, could you maybe take us through this journey, like of a brief retrospective of everything that happened? And I'm sure a lot happened. So
A lot of
this is
things
a
happen.
tough question, but yeah, we'd love to learn more about you.
I think the key points that are relevant to me were, first of all, 13 years old when I first started to do something with computer and computer games,
Hmm.
meaning like trying to open, the files behind the game, change them to see how the game changes when you change it. So it was my first steps into even not programming, but trying to do something.
Hmm.
Then when I was 17, 18, when I started studying mathematics, I wasn't a really good student, so I started to Googling what mathematicians do, and that's how I found machine learning. First computer vision, then machine learning, and I was lucky enough to find my first projects very quickly.
Hmm.
And so basically, after this, I was working mainly as an individual contributor and leader for small teams. So it was a long time of doing algorithms myself, leading small teams, creating small companies, and writing, blogging, speaking, teaching about it in different teams, organizations, etc., which all led into creation of Neurons Lab in 2019, which is I would consider a second phase of my career. Before that, it was more of individual contribution and leadership of small teams. Now it's about building organizations, which is a big challenge by itself.
Awesome. We'll get into all of that. Okay, so we have a clear vision of what you're doing and this brief retrospective. So maybe we'll get right into it. Neurons Lab. So how, why, what? um, can you share maybe more about what are you trying to achieve with the company, with the organization, and maybe like if you have some examples of like some missions that you had, we'd love to learn more about that.
We want to empower as many companies, organizations as possible to use AI in a proper way. We see it's a really new thing, and we are working the field, I'm not ashamed to say, longer than many others. So we want to be leaders, setting example, and empowering others to do AI in the correct professional way. Because we are consulting development companies, so our, let's say, the peak point for us is to be leaders, to be the lighthouse for other organizations, startups, companies, maybe even governments, and sometime how to do apply AI in the right way, both professionally, humanistic way, maybe even philosophical way. And this is our start point. In a bit more short-term period, we want to empower as much more organizations as possible to use AI for their growth and benefits and satisfaction.
Awesome. And when you say apply AI like the proper way or like follow best practices, what do you have in mind that you've seen or you've heard of that data or AI are not implemented correctly in companies? Like, do you have maybe examples, or is it like from a philosophical perspective, from an technical implementation perspective? Can you share more about that?
It's hard to judge philosophical because many people, organizations can have different philosophies. But technically, unfortunately, so many organizations don't do it even the right way, starting from the data.
Hmm.
Not many people collect clean and structured data the right way. Many people don't set up the metrics and expectations. Many people don't keep track of what they're working on. Many people are not able to iteratively increase the performance, whatever the performance is, and then put it into the actual product production to satisfy the end customers. So
Hmm.
at every stage of this pipeline, there are ways how you can do it properly. Unfortunately, we see that many people, especially today with generative AI, they just try to write some prompts with OpenAI API and just think they have a company or the product or the business process optimization, which
Mm.
in reality they have a really rough POC, which is even not close to something what can work and improve and evolve for years. And we are trying
Mm.
to bring this to the world to help as many as possible to make something that lasts.
Yeah, awesome. I'd like to ask you about a specific project that you've had, or maybe multiple, just to. So I'd like to learn more about the mission and how you're leveraging the companies. I would have more questions on like building teams, leading teams, how to get good at implementing and enhancing data and AI in companies. Maybe before that, could you share like your approach to problem solving? Um, if maybe you can use an example that would be cool, but like how do you go about solving problems with data and AI, and share an example along the go? Could that be something we can do?
Um, Maybe I'll split the question and the answer as well. So when we talk about the second part, the solving the problems, we need to define the end goal really well. And this is where most of the companies are struggling, what we are actually are trying to achieve and how we are actually measuring it. Because
Mm-hmm.
we are AI and in general digitalization, etc. It's really a numbers game. So you need, if you can define clearly the output, then you can find the right input. And I really liked one of the engagements that he had with Singaporean company Cordex, now part of Magellan X. They're installing sensors on the ships, on the big vessels.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very not digital industry. So just installing the sensors, collecting the data is already hard. But this data is not coming frequently. There are not so many digitalized ships. So actually you don't have a lot of data and the quality is really low. But still you
Mm-hmm.
would like to do some predictions. You would like to estimate emissions. So you have some data, you have some objectives, but traditional machine learning might not work here. So how to do it? And this is, for example, another part that we try to bring at Neurons Lab is to combine domain expertise with machine learning. And when I say machine learning, even say a bit in the broad sense, like mathematical modeling. Because with this specific customer, what we really had to do is to do more mathematical modeling than machine learning. So if you get a traditional data scientist who studies, Coursera courses and knows about neural networks, you might be even not never be able to solve this problem because you need to know really well what is the input, how the diesel engine is working, what are some angular speeds, what there's the combustion ingestion moments. It's even different coordinates. It's not Cartesian coordinates that you measure the data in. So you need to be
Mm-hmm.
physicists Then when the data is broken, there is not enough of data, you cannot just train a neural network. You need to be able to read and understand scientific papers with physical models and then implement them in your favorite programming language. And
Mm-hmm.
then you need to optimize them towards the specific business target and business metric. So all of this are important pieces of the project we did with the Cortex to be able to predict the health of the engine and to predict the emissions that this engine will produce.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, it's on the high level, it sounds like machine learning problem or emissions prediction. Oh, I'm just gonna use some neural network to predict time series. But
Mm-hmm.
in reality, it had nothing to do with time series prediction. And this
Mm.
is what is example of interesting project.
Hmm. Yeah, like having all those tools and knowing well how to map the best models or mathematical applications. Yeah, I like to demystify AI or machine learning more generally into this is not just about Gen AI or transformers or neural networks. Awesome. You mentioned that you've built or led different teams before starting on your company. What was it like? How did you improve? And what are the skills that you needed to develop to be effective or efficient at leading this team and achieving high performance?
Before Neurons Lab and with smaller teams, and also given the market state. So before AI, and still AI is a relatively new thing. So even the best management practices are still work in progress. So for example, before my teams, we were usually like 1, 2, 3 people, not big. And in this kind of setup, you act not really like as a manager, but more of a, let's say, senior teammate who does both of the managing work. So of course you have the Scrum, you have schedule, you have tasks, board, the dailies, whatever, all the needed management artifacts. But
Mm-hmm.
still you need to show the way and empower your teammates to do something. And this
Mm-hmm.
empowerment can come with different ways. For example, you can prepare some architecture for work. You can find new data sets. So basically, your job is at this stage is basically observing what your team is doing something together with them, but also to see where your team is stuck. For example, with data, with communication, and just solve the blockers. So I think empowering your teammates, especially on the, I think also on the small scale and the big scale, is ultimate. Okay, maybe not ultimate, a really important pillar of
Mm.
leadership, team leadership.
Mm. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I like having this big picture and like setting the direction and making sure we remove the obstacles on the way before the teams arrive there. Or at least we try to, so that the
No,
teams
and
doesn't get.
literally this is like how to formalize the goal that everyone understands. So you need to understand, okay, how to measure something, how we can put
Hmm.
number this. What is the number that we can measure every day, every week, every month? And we
Hmm.
all aligned on this. We all discuss, we agree this is the number we want to achieve. And
Hmm.
then you have some standard management techniques. How do you synchronize on this? And then, yeah, I think the creative part is to find the solutions to the blockers. So you need to step back a little to
Hmm.
see what's happening around. And yes, sometimes you need to just bring solutions by yourself. Sometimes
Hmm.
you brainstorm with the team. Then it depends.
Awesome. What are the challenges that you faced leading teams um, previously to your company and maybe nowadays? If that's something that I can ask about, but what are the challenges that you can see? Because you have a very interesting profile. I don't like to make the distinction in between like technical and business because I feel like all of these are not necessarily separated and you embrace different aspects of it and more. So, how do you develop different skills that we tend to generalize as they can't match? Like, business is business, technical is technical, which I don't really like. But like how do you embrace all those skills, how do you develop all those skills? And coming back to the I'll come back to the question of teams and challenges that you can face afterward, but I'm very curious to ask you about how do you combine all the skills, how do you develop those skills, and how those skills makes you better on a daily basis, like having different hats, let's say.
I would say in my case, it's partly the luck, but if I want to put it kind of on the higher level of abstraction, I think it's important to separate what is your education, what is your talent, and so what is something that you learn like as a partisanship. So my education is technical. So obviously, I've spent many years and still studying like technology, algorithms, mathematics, how to implement it, and I'm pretty much good in this. This is number one. I would say my talent, something what I was doing since really young age, is some kind of public speaking. So, for example, I was playing guitar. I was doing some things like in the school, small theater pieces, etc. So, since really small, I'm not afraid to speak out loud, to speak from the scene for the big audiences, which is a proxy to a sales skill. So, basically, for me, sales, speaking, explaining is comfortable, and I would say it's coming from the even some kind of childhood conditioning. And then over the years, something what I had to pick up, and something what I didn't study exactly, and something what I cannot say is my talent is management. So I was just working with people who are before Neurons Lab, especially now with Neurons Lab, are really great managers, and I learn from them basically just how they do things. And yeah, when you combine sales, management, technology, those are the important things actually to run organizations. Not the
Awesome.
only ones, but yeah, important.
Makes sense. And speaking of management, how do you have like examples of hmm, I think what I'd be interested in is how do you get good at management, which I believe is a a long process, and we can always improve. But do you have insights on that? Do you have insights? You mentioned like get surrounded by people who are good at it, and learn from them. That's one thing. Do you have more insights?
I don't consider myself as a good manager, especially if I compare myself to my colleagues right now. So that's why, like, I cannot tell you how to be a good manager, but yeah, number one is to surround yourself with good managers and copy them as much as possible. I think what also can help a little is to try to think with organizational mindset also in personal life. So, for example, what helped me a little is to approach my personal goals, my personal routines, personal projects also with structuring them, in a kind of like a Scrum Agile way, and
Hmm.
then to think in terms of resources, planning, OKRs, KPIs in personal life. I mean, of course, it's not like a game changer, but it helps with the practice. So the more you practice goal setting, resource allocation, team addition, task separation, progress tracking, issue resolution. So if you can do it, for example, with your health, with your sports, with your relationships, yeah, it kind of gives you experience and helps you to do the same thing successfully in professional life, and vice versa, of course. So
Awesome,
practice.
awesome practice. Okay, so we've came back to the challenges of building team. Okay, maybe following on this topic, what got you into building the company that you're actually building?
I think initial motivation was really different from what motivates me right now. But
Okay.
as far as I remember, initial motivation was that to do things better and kind of like to show how to do things correctly, because I was already working even by myself or with small teams as a freelancer. So basically, it
Mm-hmm.
was like a small one person agency.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to scale it. So I knew that. There is a way to make impact, there is a way to do things correctly as a professional, and I didn't have any idea of a real kind of like a product in mind, but I have an idea what is the kind of AI professionalism, because I had education, I had experience, I saw so many people around me doing it in a more simple way or often in incorrect way. That's what I wanted to fix. I wanted to bring it. And yeah, I didn't know how to build organizations. I tried, but I failed. And I found also with a big piece of luck my co-founder Igor, who had experience in building organizations and also partly in AI. So we combined our efforts, and so far it's doing really well.
Awesome. All right, following, what are you looking what skills are you looking in people when you want to grow your team or teams in general? When you want to develop, grow in the AI and data field, what are you mainly interested in terms of profiles and skills? Um, I think it would be very interesting if you share on that.
I think recently I look much less in terms of the specific skill set because skills can be trained, especially hard skills. What I pay a little bit more attention to is soft skills and work attitude. And by work attitude, at least for our company, we are. I know it sounds like a cliche that many companies put, in their company description, fast-paced environment, right?
Hmm.
But everyone says this, but we are small and we have to be fast. And when someone says like, "Oh, I need like weeks to think about something," it's all right. I understand how it can work in a bigger companies, but for example, for us, it cannot work. That's in terms of experience and work attitude. We really look for someone who has startup experience, who knows how to get things done fast. And from the soft skills perspective, it's the collaboration. Many people, especially engineers, they prefer to work by themselves, which is also okay. And you can be genius, data scientist, programmer, and in big companies there'll be always place for such genius individuals. It's like you can be extremely good, you can work by yourself, you can get amazing salary, etc., etc., which is completely fine. In our case, we focus more on collaboration, even cross teams collaboration, and even as the engineer, you need to be able to speak to non-engineers. And again, this is specifics of our organization. Again, it doesn't mean that it's correct for bigger companies or other kind of companies, but this is what we focus on: really good communication, collaboration skills, and experience in getting things done fast and
Hmm.
iterating. So another thing that happens often, people wait too long to make something perfect,
Hmm.
which in our case often is a mistake. It's better to make 10 small iterations and improve over time than make
Hmm.
one big iteration and in the end do the wrong thing.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I'm aligned with that. I feel like I feel like it doesn't work. I mean, there are many books that talk about this, like how it's way better to iterate than and learn through iteration and through feedback than trying to like get it right the first time.
Mhm.
Awesome. I'd like to ask you about your freelancing journey before coming back to Neurons Lab. Right. So you've been a freelancer for some time. How was it? What did you learn? And what are like the lessons that you can share? Like if you would to recommend pro and cons of freelancing in general in the field.
I think freelancing is definitely not for everyone for the long term, but I recommend everyone to try it. Because basically being a freelancer, at least in my view, it's building a company of one person. So you need to think about your work. Okay, I am also the CEO, I am the CTO, I am the marketer, I am the sales, I am the designer, I'm everything, which is all right. And I think it's a good. For example, I definitely didn't regret it. It helped me to try different roles, to learn different skills, and for my personality, this kind of independence is also valuable. It's one of my personal core values. So for me, it was a natural way to grow and to get ready to start building teams and organizations. But also, when, let's say, on this way, I was talking to other people who were trying freelancers, quitting freelance. I understand that also it's not easy to everyone just to try all these roles. I recommend trying. It's like, for example, if you can go for a year or two, but with one important point. It's like when you get a remote job, it's not a freelancing. Freelancing is when you consciously play the role of the CEO, CTO, head of sales, head of marketing, head of
Hmm.
design in your own company. So you have your own website, you have your own process, everything written in Notion, numbers, metrics, but you're one person.
Hmm.
So when you think like this, act like this, and even then in the end you just coding for some company, but you treat it as a like yourself as a one person company, this is what I consider it kind of true freelancing. If you just get a remote job and get salary, I mean, that's amazing, but it's not freelancing. I just
Hmm.
recommend not confusing those two terms. And there's nothing
Hmm.
wrong with remote jobs. It's like I'm pro remote jobs. Just if you talk about the freelancing, that's a bit different.
Awesome. Are you building teams remotely or presential, or do you do hybrid? Like what is your vision on that, and what do you find most effective if you've tried both?
Mostly remote. So my career was, let's say, apart from my very first jobs, was all remote.
Hmm.
We are building teams remotely, and I think what we found recently is important is to build relationships offline and then to do productive work together online. I think this is a good recipe. So the way you want to build a trade-off between, basically, yeah, hybrid is the key. Maybe in my case, the trade-off is more towards the remote work, and maybe you can meet with your team once in a couple of months. You get together, you build a relationship, you have a good time, and then you get back to work remotely. This is what I consider as a good recipe. But of course, for other organizations, it can be, even like 1 day working online and 4 days offline in the office. Again,
Mm.
but I think the some kind of hybrid is definitely the right way.
Awesome. Yeah, I like how you describe it, where even if like everyone is like in different countries or not in the same town and so on, so you can do like an hybrid style where you get 2 week 2 days at the office and then remote, but having this mindset of meeting everyone once a month, every 2 months. This is something I was listening also in previous episodes, where you can really, like, you need at some point to connect with people, like,
Exactly. To build the chemistry, to teamwork. Yeah, you cannot
yeah.
replace it. It cannot happen online.
Yeah, and it's a great vacuum for attention and so on. Awesome. So coming back to Neurons Lab, sorry. I'd like to ask you about growing the company. So we've discussed different topics, but I'm very curious to know about what challenges did you face on the journey of growing the company, and what are you most excited in general, which is a big question.
I think when you grow, you'll see challenges everywhere, and it will be hiring, it will be sales, it will be management, it will be engineering, because as organization grows, everything has to adapt. And for example, what was not obvious to me first, and what my business partner Igor helped a lot to understand and to build, is to that the company structure as itself, also like a skeleton of a company, has to evolve together with the size, with the goals, with the ambitions.
Mm,
So it's relatively easy to think about like each function separately, how they can evolve, but how to combine it together and to build a structure of those functions to evolve
mhm.
itself. This was definitely interesting and still is interesting.
Awesome.
And yeah, yeah. So
No,
basically, I cannot select only one, to be honest. Like everything, even right now, we have our like new goals. We are also growing. We're building solutions. We want to sell not only services but also solutions. We want to work with bigger clients. So of course, all of us have to adopt as kind of separate functions, but also as the organization, as the skeleton of organization as well. And we do this
mm,
iteratively, step by step. Do this.
awesome. Do you want to comment on culture? Like, how do you build culture in general in a company and in a team?
That's a really good question. We have things written as cultural pillars, but I think, and companies should have it, but I think what is most interesting is how to actually cultivate the culture. So, for example, you put in your culture pillars. This is what we have, and maybe other companies have as well. Ownership mindset, right? It's like it's a good statement that everyone has to feel a little bit like they own the company. But what
Mm,
does it really mean? Ownership mindset.
mm,
What does it mean to behave with the ownership mindset? And this is exactly the challenge: how to build a culture. You need to show with the example. What does it mean to think for yourself, to act in a company interest, to propose solutions, to be part of the team? And this is something what is a little bit intangible, because of course, again, you can start writing this down, but you cannot describe culture as not a process. You know what I mean? Something a bit more intangible. And for example, that's what I mentioned before. It's amazing to work with guys from the startups because people who work in young organizations, they grow fast, change fast, they are invested in success, and it stays as a cultural habit. So of course, it's a big pleasure to work with such people because for them, this ownership mindset is almost a standard. But for example, with some people who work for 10, 15, 20 years in a big organization, when you can, sometimes you can skip something, you even, sometimes you need to think for yourself. There's always some boss who is responsible for everything or for you. You don't have opportunity to practice this ownership mindset. But it doesn't mean that you, of course, you can do this, but some bigger organizations can create for you more obstacles to practice it. And typically, smaller organizations like startups give you more opportunity to practice it.
Awesome. Um, all right. If I come back to the future question,
Mhm.
so I would like to add one thing to this. What are you most excited about in what's coming and what's your vision? So, on a previous talk, you told me about the AI spectrum and the five
Mhm.
levels.
Yep.
So, I wanted to know if you could elaborate on this AI spectrum, what it is, why is it interesting, and maybe align it with the vision that you have for data and AI in general, based on what you've learned so far.
Uh, I recommend reading the original article. It's by NFX Venture Fund. And I think you can find it something like by AI Spectrum NFX in Google or whatever engine you use. And the idea is that there are this, what I'm telling now is my interpretation. It's not exactly how it's in the blog.
Hmm.
5 levels of AI adoption. And I don't mean that one level is better than another, but they definitely complexity is evolving. So level one, for example, in my interpretation is every company has to use some AI tools. Can be ChatGPT, can be Stable Diffusion, whatever your business is. In every business function, you can
Hmm.
empower your teammates to use AI.
Mhm.
And this is, and you can stay on this level. This is completely fine. You can be even offline business, but your teammates can use AI for do some work. Amazing.
Mhm.
Level number one. Level number two, this is when you already need to bring a little bit of your data, maybe a little bit more of security, maybe a little bit more of the workflows. For example, you need to integrate AI into your pipeline, into your CRM, into some other kind of system. You need to scale it across a function. So, for example, you need to have 10 people in marketing using AI. And if you just tell them all, use ChatGPT, this might be not enough. But if you build some integrated solution, if you
Mhm.
subscribe to some software, this can be much better.
Mhm.
Level number three, this is when you already need to achieve goals beyond average. So again, even using some LLMs is not enough. You need to fine tune it. You need to bring your own data. You need to train your own model because you need to really tailor it to your metrics.
Mhm.
And levels four and five, this is already AI is becoming your main business, and you build AI products as your main business practically. And this is basically when you see something like AI startup, and when you see even company OpenAI or Anthropic, they are basically AI first, level number five. The whole business is AI itself. And yeah, basically this is the spectrum.
Awesome. I was about to ask you like the future of AI.
Basically, that's why I like talking about this AI spectrum because then it's easy to forecast the future. There'll be more companies using and building AI on every level.
Mhm.
So I think it's pragmatic way to look into this. And even on the level five, there will be companies who will be improving artificial general intelligence and potentially
Mhm.
will even achieve it. But there will be on the previous levels other kinds of AI algorithms that are more simple, just optimizing one function, documents, voice, some forecasts, whatever it is. And in my opinion, they all nicely coexist together. Just like
Hmm.
right now, digital and non-digital businesses nicely coexist together, the same as different levels of AI adoption will coexist. And yeah, it's a pragmatic point of view, but I think this will evolve.
Mhm. I'm curious to ask you about before asking you about the future of AI and so on. which is a very fun question. Uh, um, I'm curious to ask you about uh, AGI. So, to you, AGI, without getting into too much details, because to me it is something that I don't really. It's not that I don't care about AGI, of course, no, but it really depends on like many definitions, and it can vary from different persons based on like how do you define consciousness, how do you
Yeah.
define like artificial general intelligence. There are many definitions, some more established and so on, which is why I don't tend to ask too much about it. But my question around AGI would be, do you believe AGI will be achieved? And so, okay, so now that I said that, I need to put a definition on AGI, which I'll just say it can do what humans can do better, like taking the average of humans, let's say, and like from like cover all the range of what humans are capable of on average, uh, kind of, I don't know. But that
No,
being
I
said,
think,
yeah.
yeah, this is a okay definition. For example, if you think about some kind of humanoid robot that can cook better than you, it can, shoot the gun better than you, it can run better than you, it can type text better than you, it can make SMM promotions better than you. Uh, I think if you talk about from the purely reductionist perspective, like, okay, now we need to reduce the human intelligence to one top 100 tasks. It will be, I don't
Mm,
know, cooking, shooting, cleaning, calculating, forecasting, whatever it is.
mhm.
And then we will just try to optimize each of those tasks separately to be more than human average. And then we put it together to into some humanoid robot. Yeah, of course, it will be doable. It's like
Awesome.
not a problem. Is it a true definition of general intelligence?
What would be yours now that we're discussing
I
it?
I don't have any because again maybe I'm a little bit biased towards the human intelligence, and I definitely think that human intelligence cannot be just reduced to 100, 1000, 1,000,000 tasks. But I understand why scientific community, why scientific approaches reduction is which is completely fine. I just don't think we should reduce human intelligence to this. And also, I'm open to the thinking that there might be non-human intelligence measured by different metrics, which also is completely fine. We
Yeah,
just don't know it yet.
yeah, yeah. I like it to like not compare machines and human, and yeah, I like how you frame it. And so to you, talking about what we just mentioned, achieving X tasks better than the average of humans, do you believe that it would be through one model, like one huge model, like Chat GP, like GPT 12? I don't know, maybe 6, just not that far. Or do you think it would be like multiple models, like a lot of different models are performing all together, like a swarm of models and agents? What is your thought on that?
I think the trend in the modern approach is towards one single model, multi-modal model. For example, right now there are models that can process at the same time text and images really well, like GPT-4.
Mhm.
And obviously, you can add their voice input, you can add their dynamic video input, and also you can make it act not only digitally but also physically. For example, you have a prompt that is text, image, and a video, and the answer should be some robotic arm movement,
Mm.
and with enough data or simulations obviously this can be done. So I think at least what I observe in the machine learning community, first is the reductionist approach. So first
Mm.
all of these problems have been solved separately, and then there is a synthesis approach, and basically GPT-4 is a good result of synthesis of previously done things. And yeah, so first most probably we'll solve them individually, then there will be some multimodal model that will synthesize them.
Yeah, I feel that we're really at the beginning of this because right now basically it is just all right, let's put more money and more GPUs on one model and see, and more data, and see what can happen. But we're still like on the surface of what can be done, and like all the field now of NLP have pivoted kind of
Mhm.
towards what's happening, and like how to optimize those. You mentioned something that I'm totally aligned with. There is a very interesting podcast from Latin Space where they discuss with people at Hugging Face about Obelix and Idefix, I think,
Hmm.
which are like how they are building those open source multimodal models, which is very interesting. And I really believe that 2024 will be all about multimodal models and like how we build those kind of things. And so definitely aligned. And in terms of like, is it one model, multiple model? Yeah, interesting. Um, all right, based on that, where do you think that AI is going to grow in the next 5 to 10 years? Depending on which one you feel comfortable. I feel that it's very hard to predict during 10
It
years
is.
what can happen. But like maybe 2, 3 next years, can you have a vision on that?
My mind, as every human mind, is way too linear. I think, I mean, I know that I definitely cannot comprehend the non-linear diffusion of what's happening with the AI. The same as obviously if you asked me this question 20 years ago about the internet diffusion, would have been able to predict it, how it evolved. Imagine like I live in the 90s and you see people, wow, people buy pizza on the internet, there is Amazon bookshelf. Most probably wouldn't be able to predict such a diffusion. The same as right now, I don't think I'm not able to predict the diffusion of AI, but I think what we discussed about multimodality is definitely correct. Also, I expect models to be to be acting more. So right now, when we even have the LLMs, they're purely, okay, not purely, mostly informational. So what we are trying to achieve is correct answers, correct conversation. Do we find hallucinations, biases, etc., etc., etc.? There is less work done on the correct acting. There is some work, especially with the agents, done on the acting in the digital world. For example, there can be the LLM agent that can already send emails for you, book restaurants for you, etc., etc. And I expect more acting, not only in the digital but in the physical world. And I think this will happen sooner even than my mind can comprehend. So yeah, multimodality and acting, yeah, this is what I would bet on.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. It is impossible to visualize, even though we can imagine like some impacts and like how could it
Yeah, but no, but
disrupt
imagination
industries.
is not forecasting. It's like imagination is a bit different. As I also can imagine something, but it doesn't mean it's a forecast, like educated
Huh.
guess.
Also, if we look at, for example, um, what's happening today, even though I have no idea of what's going to exist tomorrow, we like if we talk about impacting the job market, like we know that if some jobs doesn't get up to speed enhancing AI, or like robots that are enhanced by AI, they'll struggle on the job market. Like,
Hmm.
and this transition, even though we don't have like the forecast and the vision, is something that we can prepare for because it is very probable. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has a high probability. Do you have like things that you believe can be? You mentioned before about like human-centered company and valuing a lot these aspects of it's not just like technical things and machines and so on, which is like human-centered, and having like philosophical thoughts and putting people first. Do you believe that the growth that we've seen in this technology and in data and in internet, like the internet in general, how it grows, do you feel that we need to prepare for specific things, um, or are you preparing or adapting to specific things even though you're in the field? I don't know if you have some like comments on that.
I would share two perspectives, one from the individual and second from the society. I think if you talk about the society, it's more of a even political cultural question.
Mm,
And I'm not really positive here because we still live in this kind of at least in the West, we live in this kind of bipartisan political spectrum between liberals and conservatives, whatever you call them. And I can only hope for that you'll have a combination of both approaches. So there will be some, let's say, conservative approach that people have to adopt, which I believe is correct. People have to adapt, retrain, learn new skills, etc. And from the liberal perspective, there will be some government incentives to help people with maybe some universal income, maybe with some free education, some incentives, etc., etc. So I hope it will be a healthy combination of both, but most probably in the reality we will see some countries adopting radical conservative approach, some countries adopting radical left. Unfortunately, this is the world we're living in right now.
Hmm.
So for society, I'm rather pessimistic because unfortunately we live in the really radicalized society. That's why the answer to AI I expect to be radicalized as well. From the individual perspective, my answer will be similar. I'm trying to combine, let's say, both areas where I can use AI for my benefit. And for example, right now I see it's purely intellectual. So, for example, even asking some questions, structuring some things in my life. I hope I'll have more agents to maybe to structure my emails, to answer my emails, to act as my
Mhm.
personal assistant, etc. So wherever I can be reductionist and scientific about my life, definitely I'll
Mhm.
be using AI. But at the same time, I definitely don't want to lose touch with traditional humanistic things like emotions, relationships, nature, culture, arts, etc., etc. So it doesn't mean that I will not try to learn about, let's say, AI generated arts, but it doesn't mean that I don't want to lose touch with the human generated arts. So I think this kind of synthesis should be the answer both on the societal and personal level, but reality is harder. It's hard to synthesize in the reality.
Right. Yeah, agreed. And this is a hard question. It is like because it will impact society as a whole, which is like it has so many variables that it is very yeah, it is impossible to have some things can be debated. One
Yeah.
thing that I'm really excited about is the access to learning, because we can imagine very well how enhancing multimodals language with like technology, we can all have the best of the best teachers independently of wherever we live. And so that as a that I think can be very good for equality of opportunities, which is one thing that I'm very excited about.
No, definitely, I think AI has this nice social impact. So it brings everything to the average level. So when for all kind of communities and individuals when the average was level was below average, it will be a big help. But
Mm,
it was with many technologies because, but also it will create another kind of inequality. So people who actually already were above average and use technology, they will skyrocket even faster. So it's like if you think about terms of the fixed world, yes, some inequality will be fixed, new will be created, and seems like it's the endless cycle. It's like we can, and the question is, should we even fix it, or should we just trust the process and like, okay, we fix one inequality, we create another, then we work on this, we fix another, and we just need to evolve.
mm.
But yeah, that's already philosophical.
Yeah, it is, but I like it. And I like how, so today, for example, ChatGPT is like very average, even like 4, ChatGPT 4. But I really like thinking about having short term, very expert LLMs. And so you can imagine then in the new headset of Meta or Apple, where like you can play with your environment and so on,
Yeah.
you can really imagine having the best coach of whatever you're curious about, and so everyone have access to the best. And so then it is just like, am I willing to do, like, of course there will always be there will be um like inequalities in the world, and what assets do I have to start with. Like there are a lot of psychological, emotional, and so on biases, but just knowing that everyone can get access to the best coach, and like there is no, because I have a status or I know those people, I have access to higher quality of information. Like having all this information out there available publicly, like ideally publicly for anyone to
Mhm.
learn from the best, is something that can be very interesting. I personally like it, but very
No,
interesting.
it's like the question is how do you define the best? Because, for example, if I chat
Hmm.
right now with even with any kind of LLM about physics,
Yeah.
it knows all the knowledge of the physics it was trained on,
Uh-huh.
but there is new physical things like research and discoveries appearing the moment we are speaking.
Yeah.
And also this LMs create a way to control the access to information. So most of people will use, let's say, ChatGPT version 2024, and when they
Hmm.
chat about the physics, they are constrained by this knowledge.
Yeah.
And some other people, organizations, communities will use even more developed things. So
Yeah.
again, it's like yeah, we might get philosophical here, but yeah, I agree with you that, for example, for many places when the level is below average, it will be good and high enough and very good access to some kind of coaches.
Hmm.
But still, there will be other ones that are better, which
Yeah.
is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like a property that we need to understand. It's like, yeah, it's like I'm chatting to
Definitely.
ChatGPT. It's really good coach, but for example, I don't consider it as the best
Yeah.
because I know that out there is someone who is even better.
Yeah. You'll have a leaderboard in competitions,
Yeah.
like people building like very advanced drugs, whatever it will look like, where you have like all latest research plus like reasoning and pros and cons of like latest papers plus like all the fundamentals that have been done so far. And yeah, but yeah, very good point. I'd like to ask you in the few minutes that we have still, maybe about healthcare and finance, which are two domains that um, you've worked in. So, what did you learn from both fields, and do you have some insights for us based on all the use cases that you've done in these two domains?
I think what is common for both that the stakes are really high. So there is a high value, lots amount of money on stake or humans' lives on stake.
Hmm.
And then some economical contexts are even interchangeable. You know, it's like you actually can put a price on a human life if you're really reductionist, but this is what happens.
Hmm.
And so when you try to build machine learning models to detect some health condition or to price some financial instruments or try to predict something, you really need to be testing it super carefully. And by testing it, I don't mean only technical cross-validation, metrics, etc. For example, you need to combine it with the something what is common sense in the domain. So, for example, in healthcare, it will be about really careful design of your experiments, how you're going to test. For example, you build a medical device, and if you're just a regular data scientist, you're just going, oh, I'll go to the hospital, collect the data. No, you need to go to several hospitals, to several environments. You need to stratify by age, by gender, by condition, by you might even want to control for weather. You might want to control, for example, even how hairy is your skin, because depending on the hair of on your hands, you can measure things differently.
Hmm.
And if you don't control for that, your experiment is faulty, and basically you risk human health and human life.
Hmm.
And the same as in finance. It's like you want to do asset management, you want to control for different political situations, for different economic regimes, you want to control for different events that happen in business, you want to act it not only based on time but based on some events. So again,
Hmm.
the way you design experiment, the way you test, the way you define the metrics, it's very very complex if you actually think about all possible conditions.
Hmm.
And yeah, so high risk, and which reflects into really really careful experiment and testing design. And that's why those industries, people often complain they're not progressing as fast as you would like to, but because there is high risk. And that's why you need to, people are already tracking all those things.
Hmm. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, this is like those specific use cases in a mail where you can't have you can have you need to have only true positives, and all the other bugs in the matrix are to zero, like no, like we try to be the best and not making any error because the consequences are very important. And I like this comparison between healthcare and finance because, like, if we look at it from a philosophical perspective, it's very, on one side you have human's life, and on the other side you have like um, the stock market and trying to make more money. And so one could see like kind of um, a dichotomy between those two things. So I'd like to to ask you to create a further boundary between two domains. How do you make money with data science or ML in finance?
I wrote many articles about this on my blog, so I'll be shamelessly promoting it and asking you to check more there. But I think if I can summarize it in the like very very shortly, don't predict the stock market.
Hmm.
What you really want to do, you want to find the way to act on the stock market under uncertainty with the proper way, and making especially machine learning predictions about some kind of price movement. It's definitely not the only way to act on the stock market. So for people who are interested, again, you can check my blog there. I make mentions to some other books and authors, but one of the very important ideas is that because many start, and that's how I started with price prediction, and I had to realize the hard way this is not the way.
Yeah, yeah. I'm one of those person too. You
And that's
think
completely
you're,
fine. That's how many people
yeah,
start. Just maybe I can save someone
yeah.
weeks, hours, months, maybe.
Yeah, you're like, look, I'll use this strategy where it combines like moving average plus other metrics, and then I'll, yeah, like we can predict too many things that we can predict. But I like for example, I like this approach. When I thought first time, when someone told me about some people were using satellite images to look into some reserves of oil, and based on like how much they were filled, they were acting on the stock market, which nowadays everyone is going to do it. So I don't believe it works, or I believe like, I don't believe this is something that we can still be doing. But I believe that maybe, and correct me, this kind of ways of like collecting data to take actions, even in if it's in uncertainty times, can be can be used leveraged to like have a financial um I mean, just to have
Yeah.
strategies that might work in the in perform in the financial market. Even though I don't
Here,
promote it,
yeah.
and I'm not saying to do anything like it, and but I don't know, I'm just curious about it in general. What do you think?
No, I'm gonna give you two comments here. One comment is first of all, not to confuse correlation with causation, because traditional machine learning models are technically about correlation or some kind of non-linear dependencies, but it's not about causal effects. That's number one. And second, you should also understand that those connections can be temporary. And for example, they can be temporary because of the some kind of market efficiency. When too many people use the same data, the same reasoning, when you want to buy some stock or whatever, someone has to sell it. When everyone has the same satellite images, everyone wants to buy and no one to sell. Well, it's not going to happen. And also some signals, they just temporary. For example, there are some political regimes under which some signals are more strong. Or, for example, in cryptocurrency, there are some kind of cycles when sentiment in social media is even more important than fundamental things about your coin. And it can be temporal, and also don't mistake correlation and causation.
Yeah, yeah, and looking at the sentiments on social media, it's like you said, if we've at some point deduced that emotions on social media, let's say Twitter, even though now it's a bit expensive to use tweets, but if we look at emotions, but it's known that it's a good strategy, then you'll have very huge funds behind that have like best algorithms to get all those um like models that are way more advanced and that can act way faster on stock market, which like like you said, it is a cons. Okay, so two last questions, if that
Mhm.
sounds good. The first one being, where can people learn more about you? So you have a blog, you have LinkedIn. It will be in the description. Do you have more?
No, this is mainly it because all other social media they basically reflect LinkedIn. They almost mirror copy, and yeah, I think blog and LinkedIn. And when I have time, I post there.
Awesome. Perfect. Just before I ask you the last question of this episode, we had a question from the previous episode, which is if you could share one time where it was in your career where it was pretty challenging and what time where it was um, very great. So I think I transformed a little bit the question, but you have the idea.
Hmm. Hmm. Challenging. It's always challenging to fire people or to part ways with people. It's
Hmm.
like you have to do it, and it's always. I think it's never getting easy. I
Hmm.
mean, there are all the rational reasons why I have to do it this way. I have been doing it, but it's. I think it's like if you're a normal human being, it shouldn't be extremely easy for you. Maybe like a little bit challenging. And exciting moments always for me personally about starting something new, starting a new company, starting a new direction, starting a new partnership, starting working with a new client. So every time there is a new beginning where you need to set up a foundation and create something like basically 0 to 1, always exciting for me. I'm less excited about let's say 1 to n things, although they have to be done. But every time there is something happening from zero, it's always interesting.
Awesome. And last question, and I want you to thank you. I want to thank you for coming on the show, sharing, and taking this time.
Thank you for
I
inviting.
learned a lot. Yeah, and I had an amazing time. If you're still here listening, thanks a lot for joining. We still have one more question, but feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Also, let us know in the comments if you have any questions or things that we missed out. We'll definitely comment on that. And my last question is, do you have a message for the Let's Talk AI community? So it can be anything from what we discussed today, it can be personal, it's whatever you want. Do you have a message?
Oof, this is a tough one. A message. Now I have to be really careful with what I'm saying. Message, 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 message. Again, I'm at risk of being very abstract, but I see individuals and communities all often fall into a trap of this kind of linear thinking and binary decisions. It's like AI, good or bad, or do I need to work here or here? Do I need to be technical or business person? It's like there are so many dichotomies, both in inside technical decisions or in like life decisions, career decisions, etc.
Hmm.
And it's ruining so many opportunities. And maybe it's not AI related advice, but I think it's more like a general life advice. When you meet such a dichotomy in life, try to replace or with and. So can I be both business and technical? Can I make this and this? Can I
Yeah,
be both using AI and stay a human? You know,
yeah,
it's easy to formulate this question, and it can give you interesting thoughts. And I think today is again when many societies and people are really there is this dichotomy and radicalization. I think trying to synthesize and combine together can be useful.
love it. Thanks for the tips. Amazing. Well, I wish you to have an amazing day. Thanks again for coming to the show, and thanks for everyone who is still here on the podcast. I wish you to have an amazing day. Thank you.
Thank you.